to make butter, we're going to measure 1/3 cup. Yeah. And this here is heavy whipping cream. I'm going to put it into a jar like this. Stick on the lid tightly and then shake. And you're going to have to shake it for a long time, but when it is pasty and not liquid, you know you have made butter. Alright, the most important thing about making bread is dealing with the yeast. The yeast is a live, cultured organism, and if you get the water too cold, it won't activate, it'll stay sleeping, and if you get it too hot, you'll burn it and kill it. So we're going to take 1 cup of water, and we want it to be right at the correct temperature. Okay, so we're going to take a thermometer like this, and we want 110 degrees to activate and wake up our yeast. To do that, we're going to take our cup of water, stick it in the wave, and turn it on for 40 seconds and see if that's hot enough for us. Take your cup out of the microwave, stir it with your stick, and let it sit. And we want it to be 110 degrees or somewhere close. It can be a little less. Can it be 115 degrees?
Yes.
Yes. If it's 120, you're going to kill it. Okay, so this is 110 degrees, so we're going to go ahead and pour the water in here. And it doesn't matter if you put the yeast in first or the water in first. We needed 1 1/4 teaspoons of water for this recipe. You have your batter paddle. Take your batter paddle and just stir it up. It'll come to a milky white color. And you just kind of need to let it set. And if you're lucky, in the time that we have, it'll start to bubble. And the bubbles that are created from the yeast is the gas that's released that gives the air holes and the fluffiness to your bread. So there's a couple of students in your group that's going to work with the yeast and the water in the large bowl. You're going to have another couple of students that are going to be working with the smaller medium bowl for the flour. So how much flour do I need in here? 2½ cups. And you guys remember how to fluff your flour. So make sure you fluff your flour. So here I have fluffed my flour, which also helps get the aeration in for fluffy bread. So that's 2 cups. Oops. And I want this one to be 1/2 cup. So I have 2½ cups of white bread flour in here. And then I'm going to take one cup of whole wheat flour in here. Right, so we need 1½ teaspoons of salt. So I put the salt in a container like this for you because it's much easier to scoop out rather than having to try and pour it from here. You can see how it's milky white in there with the yeast and the water mixed up. And I took the lid off my honey, and I'm going to slowly pour my honey in here so I get 1 teaspoon, and watch how I turn the honey jar so it doesn't leak all the way down. You don't want it leaking down the edges. I'm going to pour in my honey and use this to help me scoop out the rest of it. So I have this, and you're going to have 2 students that are working on this, 2 students that are working on your flour bowl, and then you add them together. Make sure you put the attachment into the KitchenAid properly. Seal it so it doesn't move. put on your batter paddle. Now, did you notice how many cups of water I put in here? 1 cup. What does the recipe ask for? 1 and 1/3 cup. So I need to add 1 more 1/3 cup of water. Make sure you have a third cup of water, and then go ahead and pour that in, because hopefully the water you put in that was warm earlier has already activated the yeast. So lock it in place, and then we're going to turn it on very gently. We don't want it on high speed because all the flour will come flying out. We don't want that, because then you're going to do cleanup instead of baking bread. It should be a stiff dough if you take a look inside. And that's all you really need, just to get it mixed up like that. And then you're going to use your rubber spatula to take the dough off. Oops. Just hold it in place here. So I had detached the batter paddle from here, so it's easier for me to work with. And I'm continuing to take off as much of the dough as I possibly can. And the same thing with my dough hook. I'm now going to attach my dough hook on here. And I want this to run for 3 minutes. And I can actually go to a faster speed now. Are you looking inside? Can you see it? Okay, it should wrap itself around the dough hook like this. And that's how it's kneading. It's stretching the gluten. You've probably heard of gluten. And stretching it so that it'll make the bread properly. And you need to do at least 3 minutes. If you were doing it by hand, you get tired. You're not as consistent as this is, so you need to do it longer. Sometimes they say 5 to 10 minutes. And as you notice inside the pan, it's starting to pull all the flour off and all the crumbs off the bowl. So this is making a very nice dough. This is the kind of dough you want to see, where it holds itself together like this. Right, so you can speed it up a little bit, but not too much. It's better to stay in the low and medium speed. And then when you turn it off, go ahead and lift it up. The dough is nicely on there, isn't it?
She's recording. What is
Okay, and you're going to take your rubber spatula and just peel it off. Now, what if it didn't come out like this? What if the dough didn't want to wrap around the dough hook? Then you have to knead it by hand, and I'm going to show you how to do that just in case yours doesn't cooperate, because last period it wasn't cooperating either.